This video is supported in part by Retro Days, a place for nostalgia nerds to gather, share memories, chat, and engage. Go to retrodays.com or check their YouTube channel linked below. Oh, hey, excuse me, sorry. I was just playing some Evercade. Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John. I am a GenXGrownUp. Thank you for checking out this video. The other day I posted my review of this new little handheld console called the Evercade. And one of the things that I mentioned in the context of that video was asking you, our viewers, if there were any of the cartridges currently released for the Evercade for which you would like to see a detailed review of the cartridge itself, to let me know in the comments of that video. Well, you did. MC Murr and Creepytronic Tunes and M Fields all said, well, actually M Fields 2078, but you hate when you have to tag random numbers on the end of your preferred username because the one you want is taken.
I am not a number, I am a free man.
Anyway, all three of them said they would like to see a review of the Namco Collection, which I have right here. Now this cartridge has 11 different Namco titles on it. What I'm going to do in this video is I'll walk through all 11 of them, not reviewing the game itself, but really how the game contributes to the value of this cartridge, which by the way is only 20 bucks for 11 Namco titles. Now keep in mind also that as a Generation Xer, I am not like super in tune with NES and Super Nintendo era. I was kind of in computers then before I came back to consoles and gaming in my mid to late teens. But we're here now, we have the Namco Collection, we've got the Evercade, and we're gonna check it out. So Murr, Creepytronic, and M Fields, this one is for you.
Don't you know that you're a grown up? No games, no puns. Not allowed if you're a grown up.
The packaging, very uniform design across all these Evercade titles. The only standout to me is the 40th anniversary Pac-Man right on the title, just taking advantage of when the Evercade comes out at this particular time. This one has 11 titles in here, 6 that I know really well, and then some more that I don't know really well, so we'll learn about that together. Inside of the package, you know what to expect. We have the cartridge itself. I really love the inserts they do with these. I think this is gorgeous. Each title has a page where they kind of talk a little bit about the history of the game. It's really nice. It's very much, I think I said in my review, that it's a lot like a mini coffee table book. If you want to learn a little bit about the game and how to play it and what it's like and its history a little bit. Oh, Galaxian, really cool stuff. I'm really happy with how they're doing these printed materials. I think that's a bang-up job. Mappy Kids is included on here. I've never even heard of, so I look forward to seeing that. And the cartridge itself has that nice kind of satin finish label and screen printing on the back. So in we go, Namco Collection 1. Fire it up and get to it. All right, so let's get going. We have 11 titles to get through. I'm going to take them in the order that they are on the cartridge, which also happens to be alphabetical, starting with B for Battle Cars. Battle Cars is the 1993 Super Nintendo title. And when I first started playing it, now this is one I never played before, but I kind of thought it was like an apocalyptic Mario Kart. I mean, it has that Mode 7 perspective play, which is kind of cool, but you get to the end of the first level and you realize that there's a lot more depth here. It's kind of got an RPG element. It reminds me of, particularly, remember Off-Road Challenge, the four-wheel drive pickup truck arcade game that just spun the wheels furiously? It has that kind of upgrade your car mechanic. So when you get money that you've earned in races, you can use it to upgrade, you know, tires and shocks and motor and, I don't know, armor and all that kind of stuff to go back into the, you know, the apocalyptic wasteland and shoot some more bad guys. It's pretty neat, actually. Not one I played before, but it is one I'd go back for. So Battle Cars gets us off to a pretty nice start. Moving along for Battle Cars then into Dig Dug. Now this is the 1985 NES release. Even though you can see on the title screen it says 2020, so these titles have been tweaked somewhat from the original NES, but the gameplay, I'm finding, is exactly what you would expect it to be. I mean, look, if you've played Dig Dug on the NES, that's what you're going to get here. And by the way, I'm doing all of this video through the HDMI output, obviously, so you can see it nice and clear on the screen, and you might hear a very slight audio echo. That was the way that I captured it. It's an error that I did. I'm sorry, it's already fixed. It won't be on the next review, but just forgive that echo. It's not in the actual game if you hear it. Let's move along then from Dig Dug to another arcade classic, Galaxian. This is, again, it's the NES release from 1984, modified here in 2020. And yeah, I mean, it's Galaxian. I mean, playing Galaxian like reminds me of why they invented Galaga, quite honestly. It's once you've played Galaga or Gapless or one of the sequels, Galaxian feels so rudimentary, but I mean, the NES was genuine enough and true to the original. So, by the way, I'll point out that Galaga is missing from this Namco collection, which doesn't surprise me because Galaga is the anchor title for for the Collection 2, the other cartridge. You know, if you got all the great ones on one cartridge, you probably wouldn't buy the other one, so I guess you can't blame them. That's how they get you, though. Alright, on from Galaxian, we're going to Libble Rabble. Now, what the heck is a Libble Rabble? Great question. And by the way, this is an arcade ROM of this game. It did have a release on some computers, but not like NES or Super Nintendo. And you'll note when you go into the game, you can go to dip switch control like you could if you had the original board, go into a sound test, or start the game. So this was cool. But the coolest thing was not the dip switches. The coolest thing for me was I had never heard of this game and I was prepared to tear it a new one saying, "Ah, this is garbage. They just threw on this cartridge as fluff." Oh my goodness, it's not. I did a little research. Libble Rabble was designed by Tori Iwatani, the same guy who invented Pac-Man. And this thing is pretty cool. It's basically a dual stick game like Robotron. But rather than one stick moving, one stick shooting, both sticks are moving. You have this red and blue cursor, and the goal is to take this string between you and circle it around bad guys to kill them or treasure to claim it. The gameplay is pretty reminiscent of, remember Reactor, where you like use a trackball to draw circles around stuff? It also reminds me of Kicks a bit, where you have to draw to claim areas of the screen. And it's also really cute, like kind of a bubble bobble sort of thing. This is a hidden gem that, having never seen it before, I was thrilled to discover this for the first time, and it's definitely going on my playlist. The thing about it on the Evercade, though, is it really needs two thumbsticks. What they have you do is the thumbstick on the left and use the 4 buttons, A, B, X, Y, as directionals on the other side. That's a little challenging. I got confused a few times, but just to have discovered this game on this cartridge just makes it freaking awesome. So, alright, let's move along then to the next one, Mappy. This is the NES port from 1984, and, you know, like Galaxian, it's Mappy. If you've played Mappy on the NES, that's exactly what you're getting here. As I think I said in the review for the My Arcade Micro player of Mappy, Mappy was always fun to me, though it gets pretty punishing once you get to level 4 or 5, so I never got really good at it, although I do enjoy playing. But even though I'm not a super Mappy player, I can still get it perfect on the bonus level, so I'm not a total slouch. Alright, let's move along from Mappy into Mappy Kids. Now this is a Famicom title from 1989. After a letter from your dad, who is the hero from Mappy, you're presented with an overworld map, and you're off to build a house for some lovely girl you've never met. Apparently, according to the explanation on the title screen there, but this is bad. I mean, it feels rudimentary, it feels unfinished like a beta. Maybe that's, I mean, for 1989, I mean, you would think things would be more polished on the Famicom then, but the music is ridiculous and kind of annoying, and there's not much about Mappy Kids that I liked. And look, if this is a lost gem or one of your favorites, I'm sorry, but practice self-care and don't subject yourself to Mappy Kids. Let's move it along then to Metal Marines. This is the 1983 Super Nintendo release, and though I didn't spend a lot of time to get super into this, I can recognize this is a deep game. Metal Marines is a real-time strategy game, so if you've played RTSs, you know what to expect. You're going to be creating buildings and generating troops and gathering resources and attacking the enemy base. All that stuff is in here. And, you know, real-time strategy is not necessarily my jam, but I can absolutely appreciate a game of this depth included on this Namco collection. I mean, if this is your type of game, I could see getting tons of playtime out of this title alone. And throw in those save states, so now you can try what-if scenarios and then reload the save state if you royally screw up. So that's kind of cool. So I could see this being a lot of fun if you're the right audience for it. Alright, moving along to Pac-Man. What can I say about Pac-Man that hasn't already been said 1,000 times before? It's the NES 1983 release of Pac-Man. You'll notice, by the way, that I'm not complaining in this review that these arcade titles aren't arcade ROMs, and that's because nobody suggested they would be. Unlike the My Arcade and Arcade Classics titles that ride on the implication that you're going to get the arcade game experience, I mean, Evercade doesn't make me expect anything particular, so if this is what they provide, and I think that's totally legit. Although, as we saw with Libble Rabble, the Evercade is plenty capable of playing some arcade ROMs, so maybe we can hope in the future for some Evercade carts that have arcade versions of some of these titles. Alright, moving along, just a few left. Quad Challenge. This is a 1991 Sega Genesis title. And I was kind of excited after I saw like this cool intro animation and then speech synthesis on the title screen.
Quad Challenge!
But it's a four-wheeler dirt track racing game. Nothing particularly remarkable about it. I basically drove in a circle and lost to S. Walter. And honestly, this is probably the last time I will play Quad Challenge, so take a good look before we move along to Starluster. Now this one is pretty interesting. This is another Famicom release from 1985 that I had never heard of, but I was excited when I saw the cover that reminded me of Star Master, that view from the cockpit. I skipped training and went right into the game, and man, I wasn't disappointed. This is kind of a mashup of similar cockpit space games like Star Master or Star Raiders, both Atari 2600 games. What you do is use your long-range scanner that you toggle with the select button and warp to a zone with bad guys, and then you dogfight with some filthy aliens until peace is restored to the galaxy. And of course, all along you have some management to do. Your energy and shields you got to keep an eye on, plus you got to watch the status of your radar, comms, and engine. If you get damaged, those could be damaged and impact your ability to play the game, very much like Star Master or Star Raiders, which is pretty awesome. This feels to me like an old school first-person space fighter, and it's right up my alley, so what a great find to have discovered in this collection. Starluster, you have a new fan. Let's wrap it up with the last one in the collection. X is for Xevious. Again, this is an NES port from 1984. This arcade classic is one where I first remember fighting on two different planes, right? Because you can shoot in the sky where all the fighters are swarming, but you can also shoot on the ground with your alternate fire to drop these little bombs to blow up outposts and buildings and turrets and tanks. And some of the awesome metallic sheen that the arcade game wowed me with is kind of flattened out due to the NES's more restrictive color palette, but it's a fine port of Xevious, and I think it's a worthy title to round out the 11 that they selected. Not too bad, right? I was pleasantly surprised with this. Now, before we get into the review and rating for this one, if there are any other Evercade cartridges you'd like to see get this treatment, please just hit me up in the comments down below and we will try to make it happen for you. Yeah, so let's talk score for this Namco Collection 1. I really didn't know what to expect. I picked it up because it was Namco and it had some titles on there that I knew, but there were also some unknowns. Now, across 11 different titles, there were only 2 true duds for me that I'm like, I don't even care that they're there. So if you're talking about the 9 that were there that I liked, plus the 2 that I'd never heard of that were actually really cool and I look forward to playing some more of, well, that is a great value proposition. At least it is for me. I mean, obviously, reviews are subjective and your mileage may vary based on what you think about these games if they're ones that you want to play. But for me, I would say this Evercade Namco Collection 1 deserves 4.25 tokens out of 5. It's really not anything you can pass up if you like even a few of these games. So if you have an Evercade, enjoy playing it, and are looking for some more titles to add to your collection, this Namco Collection 1 is one you should pick up for sure. Hey, I really hope you found something to enjoy in this video, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, you made it to the end. If you liked this video, the best way to say thanks is to watch one more. Here are a couple suggestions that you just might enjoy. And if you love our content, maybe consider becoming a Patreon supporter by following the link on screen.
Unacceptable for grown-ups.